Welcome back. This is Wellspring Camp Video Training. This is basic saute, part 2. One of the important things that we teach is a dry saute. If you have worked in a kitchen or you're aware of actually saute, you know I'm going to use probably about 1 ounce of clarified butter when I start a saute process. We don't use butter, we don't use clarified, we don't use oils. So what we teach them, again, the Vegeline, spray, pan, whatever you want to do, non-stick pan. Not everybody has one, and as you can tell, this one's a little beat up. So I'm going to show you how to do what I consider a dry saute, something that I was trained at. So what you're going to do is you're going to ask them to take the pan, and you're going to ask them to give it a light spray. Now, if I wanted to, I could leave that in there because, again, 1/3 of a second of spray is 0 fat. I and you probably know what a 1/3 spray is, but if I start working with a student, I might get into that, and they might think that's okay. But I'll guarantee you I probably have at least a 0.25 gram of fat content in that pan. So one of the things you're going to do is you're going to show them to spray it like the first spray, and they're going to come back and they're going to wipe this pan down. Okay, now the one thing that can get a little difficult for them to understand, since there's no fat in there, or maybe even for you, is when is my pan going to be hot enough? So again, this pan still has fat in it. You can tell because it still has a shine to it. That's all I'm looking for. I like to equate this to if I was polishing the furniture. All I want to do is make my furniture shiny again. So that's all we need in a dry saute. Again, if you have a nonstick pan and it's perfect condition, you don't need this at all. I, on the other hand, prefer a pan that I can take and put from the stovetop to the oven. So this has just got a guarded handle on it, but if I wanted to, I could pull that off. This guard and this pan can go directly into the oven. So your mise en place that you'll have for this particular demonstration is you'll have the chicken breast. We're going to make in the culinary packet that you'll have, you actually have a fine herb sauce. For the fact of this demonstration, because I don't have some fresh herbs, which you will, I've got some herbs together. So I'm going to deglaze with a little chicken stock and water. If it was just chicken stock, the sauce would be too rich. Again, this will all be in your packet. But some basic things you want to point out when you start talking about the saute with them. So one of the first things I want to do is go ahead and get my pan going. Okay? So if you're lucky enough to be teaching with a gas grill or a gas range here, you want to make sure that, I'm going to give this a guess. Let's see, no, that's my back one. Okay, so I always tell them, make sure you don't put the pan on there, that you wait, put on your gas and see where you're at first, and then go ahead and put your pan on. Sometimes if the pan's too large and you put that on, you can't see. We know that with gas, this pan's going to heat really fast on me. So I have several ways that I can make sure that my pan is hot enough. What I'd like to prefer is just to show them to add just a drop of water, okay? Now, to show the difference, if I were to take a drop of water now, well, talk about a drop. I'm going to take a drop of water. Okay, that water's not doing anything in that pan right now. It's flat. It didn't even give me a nice hiss, okay? So, again, what we're looking for is a nice psst on that, right? I want that water to be dancing across that pan. When we saute, we want a nice hot heat. What we're doing is we want to sear that meat, right? So we want that meat to get brown, as we're going to teach this is exactly how I want you to tell the students when you're teaching them. We want to brown and sear that meat. That's going to lock in that flavor, right? We've taken fat out. So when we take out the fat, we got to add flavor into it. So the browning on that chicken is actually what's going to give us this flavor. So I want to make sure that my pan 1 is hot enough. So again, let's see if she's dancing. Still not yet. Now I've got a little bit of a bubble there, but again, not quite hot enough. So as I like to say to them at this point, because usually I'm standing like I am with you right now, watch pot never boils. Time in cooking sometimes, you just got to take a moment. All right, let's see where we're at now. Okay, we're getting closer you can see how it's evaporating, it's bubbling up, right? So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to come over here to the chicken, and I want to season my chicken, all right? I never want to just put in just a piece of plain chicken. So this is just a mixture of salt and garlic salt and a little black pepper. I want to season both sides. Okay. That's also going to add to my sauce and my flavoring. All right, let's check this pan one more time, see where we're at. All right, that's what I'm looking for. Moment it hits, I'm good to go. Okay? So, I'm going to put that chicken down. And I can tell by the sizzle that's going on right there that I'm at my right temperature. So one of the things I tell the campers or the students when I'm demoing this for them is that the biggest mistake somebody's going to do right now is probably panic and think, I need to start touching this or lifting it to see if it's browning. And what I teach them to look for is around the edge of the chicken, it's going to start to go white. Got just a smidge going there. But as this starts cooking, it'll go around the whole edge of the chicken, right? It's going to bring that up. When I see that white starting to creep up, you can see it's starting to do it there too. That means my chicken is cooking, and the more I mess with that, I'm picking up. I'm taking away from the searing effect that I'm doing, the browning. And again, in this particular process, it's the browning that I'm looking for. When I deglaze this pan, whatever's at the bottom, I'm going to get a little bit of brown, what we call font at the bottom of that. I want to lift that. That's going to add flavor to my actual sauce. So again, just have them watch. Okay, don't want them doing anything. Just want this to cook down. Again, it's the key to cooking. We want to play with it. We want to think we're overdoing it. Maybe it's drying out on us. How many times have you put something down on a pan and picked it up and pieces of the chicken will stay? It's because you haven't seared it correctly, haven't allowed it to completely do what it's supposed to do. Sealing in the juices when I'm doing that as well. It's also, it'll tell you when it's time to turn it because you'll be able to turn it. If not, and it starts to stick, let it sit for a second longer. If I can get a close-up, you can really see how that white is coming up on the edges of the chicken right there. So again, these are about 4-ounce pieces of chicken, and I want to cook this between 8 and 12 minutes. So let's divide that. Use our basic skills here. We've got 4 or 6 minutes, right? So more than likely I want to cook this 4 to 6 minutes on each side. Is that an exact science? No, it depends on the size of the chicken breast and how you want to cook this, you know. Key when it comes to chicken, something like this too, since I'm only making 2 breasts here, if I was making this for you and we were going to sit down and eat this right afterwards, then I'm going to cook that thoroughly. But if I wanted to and I was going to actually hold this over and I wanted to eat it a little bit later, I'm cooking 90 pieces of this. I want to par cook it. I don't want to cook it all the way through. When I cook it all the way through and then I put it in a hot box, what's it going to do? It's going to continue to cook, and then by the time we're done, we've got some chicken jerky, and who needs that? Okay, so again, you can see how it's come up on the sides. All right, hasn't quite peeked over into the top part yet. I still don't want to turn this quite yet. I want to give this just a second longer, about another minute. You know, one of the troubles too that you find is a lot of people start getting intimidated with chicken. You think, you know, if you see any pink, you know, you're going to be hugging the porcelain god later. So don't worry so much. Most chicken nowadays, when they're processed, I mean, you definitely need to cook this thoroughly. On a piece of chicken breast like this, it's a pretty thin piece. If I was talking a whole breast, I had bone in, I want to make sure that my internal temperature was 160. On something like this, you know, I know if I did it and it was like 140, 145, more than likely that chicken's going to be done, but trying to stick a thermometer in there can get a little crazy. So one of the things I teach the kids is I teach them a little hand trick. I tell them to take their palm, want them to touch the pad just below the thumb, right? So if that's relaxed and I touch that, that's rare. If I tell them to take the two fingers, my first finger and my thumb together, and now touch the pad, that's medium rare. Move on to my next, my middle finger, that's medium well, or well, and then well done, okay? So rare, medium, well, well done, okay? So I can take a look at this chicken now, and I can see that the color is going a little lighter. It's not so pink. So I want to give this a turn. See all that pretty color that we have right there? That's great. It's exactly what we're looking for because that's flavor. So one of the things you'll teach them too is going to be pan angle here. So if I had this pan like this, granted I've got this nice little base, this little shield protected for me, that my body can't get up into this and turn this pan. But when you're teaching and you're demoing, make sure you let them know that that handle needs to be at about 4 or 8. If you want to, you could say 5 and 7, but I want them to the side. Now again, if I did this, I'm on a gas grill, I got a little bit of a handle there to protect me, but that's still going to get hot. There's still heat permeating up there, so we don't want them to be like this. I'm on the side over here, I don't really have anything, that's not too bad. But again, I would say for our demonstration purpose, just make sure they have the handle at 4, 5, 8, or 7, okay? Now, if you take a look at the pan again, you can see I've got the brown that's starting in there, right? That's what we call font. We want to pick that up. So I'm going to give this just a little feel. I'm going to give this about another minute, and I'm going to go ahead and pull it. What am I going to have when I pull this? I'm going to have what we call carryover heat, right? So with the carryover heat, that chicken's going to continue to rest, and I don't want to cut into it, right? I want to let it sit. This is another thing you're going to explain to them. Can I get a plate? Plate, please. Thank you. So the beauty about cooking it on the one side, thank you very much. The beauty about cooking it on the one side for the time that we did and the color that we're getting, this chicken's really not going to take that much longer. So again, depending on the time, 8 to 12 minutes, did I need it? Probably not. I would say that I probably had it 4 minutes on the one side, and if I'm lucky, I might go 2 minutes on this side. Again, when I'm touching, I'm reminding the students this is what I'm feeling for. So it's chicken, I don't want it raw. I don't want it medium rare. Medium's good if I know that I'm going to keep it in my area is still pretty warm and it's going to continue to carry over a little bit. So I'm going to probably want it between my medium and my well. Okay? Well done is too much. Even if I'm putting a sauce over it, I don't want it well done. So if it feels like this to them, then they know they can pull that, which is exactly what I'm going to do. So again, lovely brown on both sides. This is what we want. That's all the flavor. That's why if we took this right now and we served that just like that, it would be great, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to take your mixture of stock and water. You're going to pull that pan off. Now, if you want, and you have some cooking sherry in there, you're welcome to use that as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tell them I want to take this and I want to get all that brown that was on the bottom up. So I'm just going to take my tongs here, move it around, and kick those little pieces up. So if you remember, I had that nice little brown spot. It's gone. It's into my stock now, right? So now I want to let this reduce. Okay, we're going to teach the kids what that means. So reduction of this, I want this to come down almost by half. And when that's happening, that's reducing my stock for me. It's getting richer right now, okay? So if you want, you could have the kids come in, have them give it a taste, and see where we're at, okay? At this point, they need to adjust it. They didn't put enough water in with the stock, or you didn't, or however you want to do. Mostly when I taught this, I actually put the stock, the sherry, whatever I was doing, I made that and I would deglaze for them, okay? If they're comfortable, let them do it. I don't have a problem with that. But again, if they're on a gas, make sure that they remove that pan to deglaze, and make sure that when they're doing that as well, that they're not keeping their hand directly over, because what's going to happen is that steam's going to come right off and they're going to get burned, all right? So that's another reason why I like to do that. So again, we're just going to kick that and just let it continue to reduce down. Now I've tasted this. It needs just a little bit of salt. Right? And I like to teach the kids how to do a little bit of a swirl method, so you're not constantly having to put something in it. If I wanted to, I could take my tongs again, give it a little bit of a mix like that, or doing this is the same thing. Now, my handle's starting to get a little hot. You will have been given a budget so they'll actually have an apron and a side towel and hats. So make sure that you show them that the side towel is only to use for hot pans. They don't wash their hands, wipe their hands on it, or anything to that effect, okay? So again, I'm going to continue to reduce this. Now, one of the things I like to explain, if I was in a professional kitchen in a restaurant and I was making this, I'd already had fat in there, right? So when I deglazed with whatever I was deglazing with, right now the fat would be most fine and would be somewhat thickening that sauce, especially if I would have like taken those chicken breasts and used a little bit of dusting of flour in there, right? Would, along with the fat and that, be making somewhat of a roux base, because I would have fat, I'd have the flour in there, now I'd have the deglaze, and I'd be getting this thick. So one of the concerns that you might be thinking is, well, this, you know, at the end, if I was doing a basic fine herb sauce, I do a monte à beurre at the end, right? Which is a nice fancy culinary French term of basically adding fat to the end of this, some butter. And I would take this and I'd swirl the butter in. The butter is actually just creating a nice shimmer in my sauce, but yet it's actually creating emulsification as well, and it's making my sauce thicker. I don't need that here. I don't want it and I don't need it, okay? This is a nice light sauce. That's all I want it to do for them. So this is starting to reduce really well. So when I'm at this point, what I want to do, someone get a knife, and I like to use this is a particular nice demo point. So they're getting 1 4-ounce chicken breast, all right? And as I like to say, if all you saw on the plate was that, you're probably more like thinking, okay, what comes with it? I'm going to be hungry a little bit later, right? So one of the things I like to do is I like to show them how I can take this, right? Take this breast. My knife is at an angle. I'm going to come in, and all I'm going to do is give this somewhat of a biased cut, or cutting it into a fan, right? So then I can come up here and I can take that and I can fan that chicken breast out. So it's a little bit more eye appealing, and as I like to say, one of the things that we need to learn to do, we need to learn to eat with our eyes as well. You know, we've got to trick ourselves into seeing presentation, because when you see the presentation, it's going to get you into the mindset that I'm really sitting down to eat, which is one of the important things. So we're going to come back over here, take a look. Okay, this is exactly where I want it. If you can see, it's starting to thick up just a tad bit for me, right? So I'm going to come over here. These would be fresh. I'm going to add some of my herbs. This is a little thyme. And this would be some chopped basil.